Azure, and like the Facebook page, facebook.com/Danaya Designs for You, facebook.com/Danaya Azure Radio, and be sure to subscribe to me on YouTube. Just type in Danaya Azure.
Danaya Azure Radio. If you don't get your life in order and listen to this woman,
and this is why I love him. Hello, hello.
hello there.
Good afternoon. Drewsean, welcome to Danaya Azure Radio. How are you, sir?
I can't complain. Doing good. I'm doing good these days.
That is definitely what's up. So this is Drewsean Williams. He is my guest today. He is such an amazing person. I met him when I was at Illinois Media School. He was one of my favorite teachers. He is the reason that y'all were able to get a 1-hour mix of music by myself, because he taught me how to mix and make sure my levels were proper. So shout out to him and all of my amazing audio teachers at IMS. So how did you get into radio? Because you have been doing radio for a very long time.
Yes, this coming September will mark my 20th year in the radio industry, and I think I want to say my 23rd year in entertainment. I got into radio by accident because my first career goal was to be a writer. I wanted to be an author. I wanted to write entertainment columns for newspapers and then transition into broadcast journalism. Kind of like I wanted to do what they do on Access Hollywood and Entertainment Tonight, not knowing that you got to go through doing actual journalism or broadcast journalism to get to that. So when your voice changed at the age of 17 and you only weigh like 110 pounds and no facial hair, people be like, oh, you got a voice for radio. So I kind of challenged myself to get and I say this in quotation marks, a quick degree, and that meant I got my associates in radio broadcasting at Kennedy King. So what turned out to be a personal dare, or for so-and-so and giggles, it turned into a 20-year career, and I worked at numerous radio stations in 2 different markets, especially here in my hometown, Chicago, and it's been a blessing ever since.
That's dope. So what was the very first radio station you ever worked at?
The best radio station? Well, naturally.
The very first. The very first.
The very first radio station was WKKC, the college radio station. That was the very first. I started out doing Quiet Storm radio at the age of 19, and it was so much fun and so much freedom playing the slow jams that I wanted to play at that time. And I remember being so hungry that I got at the radio station every week, because it was every Sunday night. I remember it was every Sunday night from 10 to midnight, and I called it bedtime stories. I would get to the radio station 2.5 hours before my shift. That way I could prep for my show, figure out which songs I wanted to play and what direction I wanted to go in or take it into. Just basically, it was the birth of me wanting to just be solely on the air. So WKKC was the very first station that I worked at.
That's definitely what's up. What would you say have been some of your challenges when it comes to radio?
Well, there are so many things that I want to mention, but I don't want to blackball myself, because this is the day and age where
right.
I'm old school to where I could shoot you straight. I could be a straight shooter and tell you the direct truth, but I'll simply say this. One of the greatest challenges in radio is being open to change. That has been one of my biggest challenges in doing radio, being open to change and at a rapid pace. Because at any given moment, you can have a brand new boss with a brand new vision and a brand new direction. This is also an industry where genres, music genres can change, formats can change. And if you don't have a strong skill set to stay in it, then you might be, out of luck and looking for another job. But I think that was probably one of my biggest challenges. One of the biggest challenges I've ever dealt with was the switch of one program director to the next and trying to get a clear understanding of their vision and trying to adhere to their rules and their direction. And it made me sort of kind of a perfectionist at what I do now, because there were certain things that just kept falling through the cracks to where it was no room for error. So I kind of taken on the role of trying to quadruple check and even quintuple check my work to make sure that whatever I do it right, I do it correct, I do it once. So that's pretty much how it worked out for me.
Definitely. And how did you get into the whole voiceover piece?
There was a guy by the name of Mike Robinson. He was one of my first bosses at Clear Channel, which is now known as iHeart. He asked me to do some drops for him, and he basically planted the idea, you definitely have a voice for voiceovers. And I didn't know what it was. But I didn't know what it was until I heard one of my idols, Rick Party. Rick Party is somebody that I grew up listening to. And he kind of fell off the grid because I didn't know what happened to him until I started watching BET and I started hearing his voice until someone said, that's Rick Party. So for giggles, during my college days, I just got on Yahoo. Before it was Google, it was Yahoo Search Messenger. So I typed in Rick Party's name, and it came up a website called Sizzle Productions. And when I start putting two and two together, that this is the same voice that is doing all the promo work and all the announcing on BET and is announcing for numerous radio stations and even announcing for pay-per-view boxing events, that's when I told myself, that's what I want to do. But it was Mike Robinson that basically gave me the fuel to start going at it even harder. And before I knew it, I was the voice of a couple of radio stations in South Carolina, and then I became the voice of Chicago State's radio station. Was trying to be the voice of numerous radio stations throughout the country. And I started the very first radio station that I started being the voice of was for, ironically, Windy City Underground, which is the internet station at Illinois Media School. I was the very first voice, imaging voice for that station. Are you kidding me? Yep, I was the very first.
Oh, that's super dope.
I think I still have some of the drops on me by hand. But yeah, I was the very first.
That's super dope.
Yeah.
So how did you get to teaching at IMS, by the way?
Well, life can give you a 180 and a 360. So the 180 came where I got fired from Windy City Underground. I did stupid stuff back then. I was young. When you're young and in your 20s, it doesn't matter how old you are in your 20s, you do stupid stuff. I did some stupid stuff that cost me my job. The 180 came when, prior to moving back to Chicago, I was working at Radio 1 Indianapolis as a production assistant and as a board operator. When I moved back, First Lady, who I give all of my credit and all my praise to, because if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't even have a career with so much longevity and a long resume. She told me to make the phone call to Illinois Media School. They're looking for instructors. And I'm thinking in the back of my head, well, did the regime change? Because I'm thinking more about the reputation that I left up there, but it was a completely different regime. I came in with my resume. The first class that I taught, one of the instructors was flabbergasted by a particular editing technique that I did on the software that we use, Adobe Audition. He said, I've been around it for 10 years and I never saw it done this particular way. And I just simply told him, well, I learned this in like 2 weeks. I've being a computer head and a computer geek, you got to pick up some of the skill sets, and I just simply applied it to this new career path that I was on within an already existing industry. So everything that I do to this day is completely experimental, just to make sure that the client always come back, the radio station always sounds good, and just to have fun with it at the same time. So that's where that came from.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, Drewsean is my guest on Danaya Azure Radio. I think what was so cool about you was that you were straight up. Like, you and Jai Liz were, like, honest. Like, look, there are, like, for real, like, radio jobs are few and far between. You have to be on point. Don't just expect to be getting one once you get out of here.
Yeah,
you can't just be like, yeah. You can't just be like, oh, I left elementary school. I'm gonna go ahead and get a job right now. You told us.
Yeah, that's not the case.
That wasn't the case.
That really isn't. No, it's nowhere near the case. And I was blessed to be around people that always to hustle hard. Because I've been around the good people, and we have a mutual acquaintance, my cousin Barundi Partlow.
Yes, I know. I'm actually working with him now. Mm-hmm.
He the one that gave me the fuel to always go hard if you really want it bad enough. And I remember wanting to get at WGCI so bad that I was willing to do anything and everything legally to get up there, and I did that. But fast forward to being my first year being an instructor, the landscape of radio has changed. The game of the overall entertainment industry has changed, and you really have to take into consideration of the pandemic. The pandemic has definitely changed the game and has limited so many opportunities to where you're basically your own entity now. You have your own platforms to where you can do a podcast and gain your own following. You don't have to take the traditional method of working for an actual radio conglomerate to build your career, where you can build your whole career, whether it be on social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, or in today's app, which is Clubhouse, or you can build your own. You could build your own brand. You could be a mobile production engineer, which is sort of what I kind of picked up in between working at WGCI and prior to me being laid off from WGCI. So it was always a lot of skill sets that I had to be the guy to cram into every other student that I taught. I told them, listen, you have to open up to what you truly want to do. I wanted to be the next host of Quiet Storm Radio on my Chicago station. That didn't work out in my favor. But had I not picked up the skill set of basic production and applied it to Adobe Audition for like the last 18 years since I've been around the software, I never would have gained a career doing radio production or commercial imaging or even voiceover had I not stuck with that skill set. And it's so important to work on your craft, even when you're in between jobs, or even if you're not doing your job right now. If you're just doing something just to pay the bills, work at your skill set, work at your craft, work on your work ethic. You know the old saying, if you don't use it, you lose it.
Lose it, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's so funny you talk about, having your own platform, that like the platform that you're on right now, like the platform service, that's ours. Like, we own that. We were originally on Blog Talk for 14 years, and then they realized that we were making them way too much money. So let's see if we can build our following, have our following come with us. And they've been very, very loyal, and shout out to all of our amazing supporters, because it's been incredible. We launched on March 16th, and we have over 300,000 downloads. Like, that's just insane. So insane.
One of my
You know what I'm saying?
Actually, one of my students gave me a call yesterday to say, "You are the man." I'm like, "Man, I'm trying to be like you. What you trying to? Why I'm getting all the praise for? It's simple. It's so simple to be creative. But what makes being creative and coming from a city like Chicago, where we go hard at what we do, we hustle hard, we work hard, we come from the idea of, by it being the city of big shoulders, that we're not afraid. We're not afraid of hard work. Mm-hmm. But most importantly, I had to train you and everyone that I came across with how to be prepared for the no. If you are prepared to hear no, that should be your fuel. That should be your fuel to go even harder, because your yes is out there. And once you get to your yes and you get comfortable, then you start working on your next. Your next is way better than your current. Always remember that. And if your current is going good, just remember, continue to work on your next.
Yep, absolutely. And that's just the thing. I think a lot of people are so focused on their now that they don't even think about their next.
Right. Because they think the now leads to arrogance. It leads to lackluster quality work. It leads to nothing. It leads to you being invincible and thinking that nothing's going to happen to you, where everyone is one paycheck away from being broke and homeless. Everyone. So do not take anything that you do in this industry lightly or for granted. Don't burn your bridges. Continue to stay connected with those that is in a better position and that can help you either point you in the right direction or bring you on their team to make their brand or their company or entity even better. Do whatever it takes. Do not limit yourself. Don't limit your talents in one realm. I cannot tell you how many people that have shot themselves in the foot and limit themselves in doing just one thing. And I'm actually one of those people, because I love radio. I'm gifted to do other things within radio, but I still have partial regret of not paying attention to Professor Hemphill's class at Kennedy King on how to hold the right camera and how to work with Avid and how to hold a shotgun mic or know the difference between a shotgun mic or a lavalier mic. You know, I could have opened up more lanes, but God kept me afloat in staying in the radio realm and still study those that are in the television realm, which is now beneficial in the social media realm.
Yes. Most definitely. You know, and I think the biggest thing that you taught us was, you know, how to make sure that we're not spending all day when it comes to editing too. Like, you taught us a lot of tips and tricks where we can cut it so we're not like sitting there and stressed out for like hours and hours and hours trying to get our pieces done. And that's important, because I know back in the day, like when y'all were editing, you had to edit like literally on the spot.
Yeah.
And I had to cut like right then.
Right. And I still do. Well, not as much, seeing that I work from home. I'm blessed to have the ability to do what I do in the comforts of my home, and I can take pretty much can do any production work anywhere. I mean, I could produce a commercial in my car, or I could produce it at the 95.1 studios where I'm currently at. I can actually, it's a blessing. But when I was working at Radio One and iHeart, it had to be done in a timely fashion, because you got to think about it. These are clients. Clients are spending a lot of money to get their product on the air to get their service on the air, to get their company on the air, to generate more clients so they can come back. So their money being invested into the company is based on how efficient is my turnaround time. If my turnaround time is within 24 hours, you're going to get it done in 12. And sometimes, you have to do it for a full 24 hours in order to get it cut down to 12. You have to eat, drink, and sleep what you love. And you have to master it. A master needs 10,000 hours.
Yep.
I used to tell all my students that, including you. A master needs 10,000 hours. And right now, I have to retrain myself to be a master of what I do again. And every day that I go to work is a new opportunity to be a master of what I'm capable of doing.
Definitely. And I think the biggest thing about it is you never stop learning. There's always something new. Like when you talk about Clubhouse, like that's all audio. That's something different because most people are just doing pictures or just messaging or whatever. But Clubhouse is completely audio, and
it is.
And so it makes it a totally different realm than what we're used to, for sure.
Yeah.
But then you also are an author. So how did that come to be?
Pardon me?
You're also an author. So how did that come to be?
Well, the author is basically tapping back into my old dream of writing. When I was in high school, I used to write poetry as a spoken word artist, and college came. It came an overload of poetry and spoken word, and I used to go to open mics. In fact, I used to host the open mic at Kennedy King, ironically, and I showcased my talent there. I've always wanted to write a book. I actually finished the book. My first book was called Authentic Words. It's actually my own approach of African Proverbs, which was a book given to me by Daryl Denard. And Daryl Denard, if many people can Google him, he was the first host of Ebony and Jess Showcase. He hosted Know Your Heritage. He currently is the host of Chicago Speaks on B103. Yeah, he was actually the general manager at WKKC, and he was actually the department head of the overall broadcasting department. So to have someone of the industry overseeing that department and someone that can actually point you in a direction that you can go into, I had some good people. I had some top-notch people in my corner that was really helping me out. So the book was already done, but it took me totaling my car years back and made me come to the question, Drew, if you don't drop this book right now, you have literally wasted a gift. So in a knee-jerk reaction, I dropped the book the beginning of 2017, and I've gained positive reviews from friends and family and people that actually purchased the book. And it's still on sale, and I've revised it so many times. And it's right now it's on the third. It's under a third revision right now, and I'm actually working on another book. But my writing has been hiatus because when you're doing radio and you're working from home and you have there's no schedule with me in regards to when to get work done. I mean, the pandemic kind of opened up a door to where it's like semi-freelance to an extent where I could produce I could produce a commercial at like 5 o'clock in the afternoon and still eat dinner. Or if I'm that bored and I just so happen to get an email and I can't get sleep at 2 in the morning, I'm going to my car where I can record something and produce something right then and there and then go right back to sleep. So it's very funny hours for me these days.
Definitely. And that's the thing people don't understand. Like, radio is 24/7.
Yeah.
like, it doesn't really, especially, like, because, like, that's what I'm learning. Because we went from having a show for, like, a few hours to literally have a 24/7 station, and you got to be up as much as possible to make sure everything's working right. Because technology acts up. You got to make sure that everything is on point.
I can tell you what was told to me by one of my professors. She said technology is stupid. You have to consistently tell it what to do. And even though technology is on the verge of innovation, it still needs to be operated by a human, because it has, when someone is operating technology, there's a certain level of intellect and judgment, good judgment, by the way, that still will point that technology in the right direction.
Well, cool. Yeah, exactly, and that's the biggest thing about it, is that we have so many people that just don't get that part.
Right.
Because they're thinking like, oh, it's instant, it's, I can do this. This is no big deal. And it's like, no, there's a lot of work that goes into this. There's a lot of work that goes into the behind the scenes piece that nobody sees.
Yep.
And I think, and it's funny because, like, I see some people that we're doing Blog Talk, and they forget that it's about your audience. You grow your audience by the way that you treat them.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be very respectful when you're having guests and everything like that. Make sure that your audience feels comfortable.
Right.
I think a lot of people forget that. They think it's like, oh, it's just about the guest. No, you're trying to grow your audience. You want to make sure that your audience feels loved and respected, so they can come back and tell other people.
Right. Get people to listen. Keep those same people listening, and give them a reason to come back and listen to you again.
Exactly. That's the biggest thing about it, is you want those repeat listeners.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want the people that just come in, occasionally. You want the people that are going to come in over and over again and spend time with you, because they feel comfortable, because they're having fun, because they love your energy.
Right.
And that's the biggest thing, is just making sure that you're catering to people that are going to support you in the end, period.
Mm-hmm.
So you did a jazz set on Clubhouse. How did that thing come about?
It came about out of scrolling through Clubhouse, and there was this room called the New Jazz Listener, and I'm thinking, oh, a room about jazz. Let me step on in. And many people don't know, I love jazz more than any other genre, and I'll listen to it as much as I can, as often as I can. That's part of my therapy. It's very therapeutic. I remember playing two songs. The room is set up where when you're a guest in that room, the guest has the opportunity to play two songs. And there were two songs that I played for the two moderators at that time. And they were so impressed by my selection that they asked me to be the third moderator. And I have been a co-host of that room since December of 2020.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. And and that's what I feel the testament to the way that you network, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you have quality work, people want you to work with them. That's how you get connected.
Well, that's the funny thing about that. I wasn't expecting anything for the first time for it not to be radio related. It threw me for a loop, where I'm thinking, oh, this is something that I rarely get a chance to talk about, because most people don't listen to jazz like I do. I wanted to do something different outside of the norm of your hip hop, your R&B, your Jay-Z's and your Nas's and your Chris Browns, things of that nature. I wanted to do something that I actually enjoy, but most people don't understand, or don't even know that if it wasn't for jazz, hip hop wouldn't exist without jazz. Many people forgot that. So I incorporate some of those elements in that room, which basically brings in more people to listen. So that's what makes it more fun. And not to mention, we have a lot of fun. The biggest highlight of that room was the son and granddaughter of Thelonious Monk was in the room. So
wow.
That was a high honor. That was a high honor for me. So that was a big deal for me. And I was more enamored and floored that he was talking directly to me based off of a selection that I played, in which I played the song by Max Roach. Turns out that Max Roach was Thelonious Monk's son's drum teacher.
Oh my goodness.
That was, when I heard that, I'm like, listen, you can't tell me nothing for the rest of the day, for the rest of my life.
Wow.
I just had a full-fledged conversation with the son of Thelonious Monk, one of the baddest jazz pianists next to Duke Ellington in the world. So can't nobody say nothing to me right now. I'm good. I'm good.
And I think that's the biggest thing that I love about you is that you are all about giving people their flowers while they are alive. You've always been that way, and I think that's really, really dope. And even when you were showing us, when you were talking about voiceover, the first person you mentioned was Rick Party, and the fact that that you don't just focus on, what you do. You're always giving people their respect and showing this is where it came from. This is where the pioneer was.
Right.
And that's and that definitely that shows what kind of person that you are, because you've never forgotten where you came from. I think that's so incredibly important.
Oh no, I'm always gonna
that's so incredibly important.
Yeah, never forget where you came from. Stay humble. Don't ever get the big head. I'm always gonna be Drew from the West Side and South Chicago.
So what's some of the things you have coming up, sir?
Well, I'm still doing the new Jazz Listener. I'm actually part of a podcast called the Chris Michaels Unchained and Unfiltered podcast.
Yes.
Check that out on Spotify. I'm still doing production work for the FM Omni Channel 95.1. We're 100% digital now. And
awesome.
I do freelance. I actually do freelance podcast producing and consulting outside of doing radio stuff and outside of doing voiceover. And I'm always busy. I'm always working on my next opportunity will come to fruition with whatever I do now. So I got to stay busy.
So final question, what do you want your legacy to be?
I want my legacy to consist of people saying, damn, he did it. That's what I want my legacy to always consist of. In fact, what I have done in regards to teaching you and any other student that I taught are my legacy, because you guys are utilizing all of the tools and all the techniques and all of the wisdom that I poured into you, all the jewels in your careers and in your everyday lives. And the only thing that I ask of anybody that I came across is to share the knowledge. Don't be stingy with it. That's what I want my legacy to always be consisted of. The fact that I did a damn good job at what I did.
You see why I love him? Like, you see how amazing he is? He was super, super dope. And he was such a great teacher. And he told it to us straight, like, every single time. he would joke around and play around or whatever, and so he always kept it fun. But when it was time to get down to business, he just came right down to business. And and he helped me specifically. I knew a little bit about audio, but I learned so much more from him, besides Liz and Devontae Stone. Like, y'all just were so incredible, and the fact that you all got to the point where you trusted me to lead projects and all that kind of stuff was humbling, because y'all have been in this business for so long. And I was just starting playing around with audio and whatnot, but I was able to get to the point of mastering it because of all of the amazing knowledge that I was given. So I definitely want to say thank you for that, for sure. That's why I need to have Drewsean on, because he's the reason that I'm able to mix these records the way that I'm mixing them, because I wouldn't have known about levels and equals and all of that kind of stuff had it not been for y'all. For sure.
Thank you.
And where can everybody find you on social media?
Deacon_Drew for Instagram and Twitter.
So make sure you guys follow him at Deacon_Drew.
Hey, what's up? It's Danaya Azure. Be sure to follow me all over social media at Danaya Azure, DANAYAAZURE, and like the Facebook page, facebook.com/Danaya Designs for You, facebook.com/Danaya Azure Radio, and be sure to subscribe to me on YouTube. Just type in Danaya Azure. Head, hands, heart. Redefine STEAM in order to understand the STEAM education and skills that align with the 21st century careers. It is inclusive to all students, embracing the whole person. It is driven by the extraordinary potential for all our kids to shine through a joyful exploration of their own passions, talents, and skill sets through the head, hands, heart framework. Go to www.buildingsteambridges.com/head, hands, heart for more information.
Hey, it's dope ass music. You're now tuned into Danaya Azure Radio on the Legacy Platform Service. Yay!
Are you looking to finally get your LLC for that new business? Well, let me help you out. Founded in 1899, Incorporate.com leads the industry with over a century of experience, providing incorporation and LLC formation services for entrepreneurs, sole proprietors, partnerships, and nonprofits, with nationwide services in all 50 states. Go to tinyurl.com/corporate legacies. That's tinyurl.com/corporate legacy.
K4S,